So I'm now showing you my screen, and I've opened up the Word document which speaks to your approach and the specific questions that were asked. So at the beginning of the document, you have some background that in January of 2011, we undertook a study that was really a reliability and validity testing study. And we asked 146 men and women to participate in an instrument validation study, which was completed online or via telephone interviews. I offer you some information on the first scale, which we call the CIVI for short, the Cumulative Interpersonal Violence of Inventory, which assesses exposure to violent and nonviolent traumatic experiences. So the scale accounts for the duration of the traumatic event, the intensity of the situation, or how often the individual felt powerless or out of control, and the level of distress that was associated with the event. And there are two subscales. Violent traumas and nonviolent traumas make up the entire cumulative interpersonal violence inventory. Under violent traumas, there are combat, peacekeeper, civilian, war zone, and all of these variables. And under nonviolent traumas, there are 4, which include natural disaster, auto accident, and so forth. So we go on to the next page, which really speaks to the items, and this should be used as your code book. So the first question that the individual is asked is, do you ever participate in combat, either as a member of a military or a member of an organized non-military group? And so the individual says no or yes, and if they say no, they simply go on to the next question, and everything is coded as 0. If they say yes, then they respond to the following questions. So how long did the situation last? And so they responded in days, weeks, months, years. And what you see in the data set is everything converted to months. In terms of intensity, while you were in that situation, how often did you feel out of control or fearful for your life? And they can rank on a scale of 0 to 4, so an ordinal scale, how often they felt powerless or out of control. And then finally, there's a distress question. While you were in that situation, how distressed did you feel? So 0, not at all distressed, all the way up to 4, extremely distressed. So this would be your code book. In terms of the emotional self-awareness scale, which assesses an individual's capacity for identifying and managing their own and others' emotions, the person was asked 21 questions, and they were asked, how often is the statement true for you? So for example, friends say that I quickly pick up on what they're thinking and feeling. The individual was able to rate their score on a 0 to 4 scale. So again, ordinal scale, interval level data with a, let's say it could be either ordinal or it could be interval with a true 0. So in this case, if we're running statistical analysis, we would use the 0 to 4 as a continuous scale as opposed to a single scale. But you'll notice that this is also coded as nominal in the data set. And these are little things that you want to just pick up on. Finally, there's the 23-item traumatic stress scale, which assesses the severity of post-traumatic stress symptoms along 4 dimensions: intrusion, hyperarousal, avoidance, and numbing symptoms. And so Table 2 then tells you the different subscales, which is re-experiencing, avoidance, and hyperarousal, and numbing. And then it gives you the numbers of the questions that are associated with each of those subscales. Now, there are 24 items, or actually 23 statements on this revised scale. For example, I remembered a traumatic event or experience, even if I didn't want to remember. And so you could say not at all, rarely, sometimes, or often, again, on a scale of 0 to 3. So that's the code book. And so your first question is, conduct a missing values analysis for all of the variables in the data set. And I know this is a new procedure that you wouldn't have done in the past, but I wasn't anticipating that this would confuse you so much. Your book on page 52 talks about missing data, and it talks about some of the options that are available in SPSS. And yes, they don't introduce you to it, but this is where I was hoping you would do a little bit of your own little research maybe watch a YouTube video related to missing data or something like that to seek out and understand the missing data and how you might actually analyze this. But even if you didn't do that, you could go to Analyze and you go Missing Values Analysis. And so let's reset this because it's set from when I did the answers to the test. So what I suggested was that you use all of the variables. And you'll notice that the categorical variable only has one item in it. And so we don't really consider the ID numbers a variable. Instead, we would want to use that in the case labels so that it helps us to understand if there's a pattern according to individuals within the study themselves. So if we then click on patterns, there's an option to select the tabulated cases grouped by missing values pattern, and we can select that, and that's really all. It sorts the variables by missing value pattern, and that's really all that we want there. In terms of the estimation, you can select list-wise or pair-wise. I'm forgetting what EM refers to and the regression. So really all we want is the pairwise at this time. And so we simply click on the paste, and then we highlight the whole thing, and we run. And so what happens is you see the syntax that runs, and then the information. The univariate statistics is the first thing that we focus on, and if you look simply at the bottom of the table, you'll see that A indicates that the interquartile range is 0. And do we have any A's anywhere? No, I'm not seeing any A's. Nope, I'm not seeing any A's. So there's nothing for us to focus on as the interquartile range being 0. B is the number of cases outside the range of 1.5 of the interquartile range. So those are the extreme values. So here you'll see that there are 28 for beaten up duration in terms of month and 36 stalked duration in terms of month. And so we continue on. But really, the part that we want to focus on is the missing count. And so if we look at sex and age and race and parents and birth country and citizenship, we see that there are chunks of information, 11%, and we want to be concerned about really anything above 10% of missing data. So we can look at those and say, wonder what's going on there. Now, if we go to the next table, we see the patterns with less than 1% or fewer. So this was the box that we ticked. And I have this thing that helps me to prevent strains, so it pops up every once in a while. So if we were to look at this, A, variables are sorted on missing patterns, and B, the number of complete cases if variables is missing in that pattern are marked with an X or not used, okay? And so if we are to go across on that scale, we'll see that we have some variables where there's some missing pattern that's being noted here. Sorry, this thing keeps popping out. So if we go back, what we notice is that the number of cases that have missing data, there's 4 cases or 10 cases that have missing data. And the missing data is related to, in this case, the ESS6 and the witnessing duration. And then there's a number of others